Hello everybody, welcome back to more of the Labyrinth of Grisaia. Here we are, a little trip to the woods. Last episode Asuko gave us our very own weapon, a rifle. And well, we're gonna go out, we're gonna test it. Looking back on it, I think the first thing I learned in my time with Asuko was the art of brewing coffee, of all things. Normally she was happy enough with anything bitter and caffeinated, even the canned stuff. But on camping trips, she always opted for drip bag coffee. Pouring heated water solely into a cup, I watched the ground beans swell inside the bag. It took some care to extract their flavor properly. Sometime before, Asuko showed me her method, claiming that the ritual of brewing coffee was enjoyable in its own right. And after that point, I'd taken over the job entirely. I don't know, it all smells the same to me. Honestly, I'm not sure how she could have appreciated the smell or taste of the beans, considering the way she puffed at her cigarette after every mouthful. Asuko herself always claimed that cigarettes added flavor to her coffee, but I don't know. The way I saw it, she was just a nicotine addict, and the coffee would probably taste a lot better on its own.
That's
good thinking. Apparently, a grunt who'd suffered through countless terrible battles had left behind words of wisdom to this effect. Throw away your gun if you have to, but hold on to your cigarettes. At the sound of the word gun, the coffee in my mouth grew noticeably more bitter. I glanced to my side. The toy Asuko had bought for me was sitting there, not far away. There was no mistaking it for a child's plaything. Sitting on the ground with its barrel propped up by a Harris bipod, it was the very picture of a deadly weapon. What did she expect me to do with this thing? Stupid question. A gun like that was a tool with only one real purpose. You used it to kill living things. The idea was nauseating. I couldn't even bear to catch a fish, much less gut one with a knife, which I also have a bipod for. But now that I was starting to break out of my shell, maybe Asuko had decided it was time to address my terror of killing head-on. Of course, fish fillets and packaged steaks don't come from nowhere. They're the processed bodies of animals. Plants are alive in its own right, and just by breathing, we kill tens of thousands of microbes. There's no way for human beings to exist without harming other living things, at least on some level. To hear Asuko tell it, this meant that life itself was fundamentally a battle. But even so, I found myself picturing a great, insurmountable wall looming up to block my path. It looks so angry. Look at that face. Man, that's like a deer who just came home from a long day of work and he's not ready for any crap. Melt into the forest. Control your breathing. Approach without betraying your presence. Kill your prey with a single shot. It all sounded simple enough, but killing a living, warm-blooded animal felt like an impossibly tall hurdle. She wanted me to shoot the deer. To take its life. Once it was dead, we turned it into meat. I understood all this was natural, but my head was still reeling. My belly was still churning with acid. It was all I could do not to vomit. Okay, I lay there, peering into the scope mounted on my rifle, and as I stared at the deer centered in the fine duplex crosshair, my fingers sat immobile on the trigger, and my breathing grew increasingly rough. Asuko had told me to clear my mind and pull the trigger calmly, sweat dripping down my face. I had tried to do so, but my finger just wouldn't move any further than this. My right arm ached with the memory of smashing a bottle against my father's head. There was a sour smell like that of raw sewage at the back of my nose. I can't do it. Finally, as the stinging sweat poured into my eyes, I grimaced and squeezed them shut. Perhaps sensing that something was amiss, the deer burst into a run, quickly vanishing deep into the forest. I can't do it, Asuko. I just can't. I couldn't bring myself to kill. It wasn't like I was making a mortal stand. I was just weak, a whining, spoiled child. I was closing my eyes to a reality I didn't want to think about. I understood that perfectly well. But I still couldn't just pull the trigger. As I curled up miserably into myself, Asuko took a cigarette from her pocket and proceeded to light it. Fundamentally, killing people isn't a job that a normal guy can do, even if you have a clear reason to take a life. The experience is going to leave a mark on you, whether you like it or not. When you're still new, you can usually get the job done anyway. It's easy to pull the trigger without a second thought when you're frantic with worry about actually completing your mission properly. But soon enough, you get a few jobs under your belt, the routine starts to come more naturally. Your mind can afford to wander a little. And that's when things get really dangerous. For a while, you can probably keep functioning anyway. Up until thoughts like, am I really doing the right thing? Start popping into your head. Once those little doubts start nagging at you, it's basically over. Your doubt makes you hesitate. Your hesitation slows you down. Sometimes it even turns into fear, stopping you dead in your tracks. When things get that far, there aren't a lot of options left open to you. You can fail on the job, which means dying, or you can lose your mind and turn into a killing machine. There aren't really many decent outcomes. Seemed like a pretty crude attempt at shock therapy. The simplicity of it was almost childish, like someone tried to distract you from the pain of a shot by pinching your other arm. Still, Asuko told me it worked for her, so maybe it was an effective treatment in its way. If you push yourself relentlessly forward, you won't have the time to hesitate or dwell on the past. If you focus on your job single-mindedly, eventually that scar on your heart will just be one among many. You'll grow numb to the pain.
私にはそういう生き方しかできなかった。けど、お前もそうだとは限らない。私みたいになっちまえば、もうどうしたって普通には戻れない。悪かったな、ユージ。
I just...
くそ。この程度のことでピーピー泣くんじゃねえよ。いいか、ユージ。男の涙ってのは人のために流すもんだ。自分のために流していいのは汗だけだ。覚えておけ。
Okay.
まあ焦ることはない。いや、むしろ殺す必要もない。普通に生きていく分には生き物を殺さなくても問題ないからな。今回の狩りはそのための簡単なテストだ。
A test?
私がお前にかけた安全ピンが簡単に抜けちまわないかのテストだよ。テストの結果はまあ良好だ。お前はそれでいい。だがな、ユージ、必要がないから殺さないと殺すことができないでは大きく違う。殺せないという弱点がいつか自分の命を落とすきっかけになる可能性もある。しかしそんな可能性が限りなくゼロに近い生活に戻すためにこうして山の中でリハビリを続けてるんだから。私がお前にさせたこのテストはあくまでも懸念に対する保険のようなものだ。どうしても殺せないのなら殺さずに済む方法を探せばいい。それだけのことだ。
I'd failed to live up to Asuko's expectations, and now she was actually comforting me. It only made me feel more miserable. I almost wish she'd just jab me in the forehead and make fun of me. Probably would have been easier to take that than this. I'm a coward.
人間なんて臆病ぐらいでちょうどいい。 バカと英雄は早死にするもんだ。
Maybe that was true. But at this rate, I'd never be able to protect anyone I cared about. Face to face with my own helplessness, I found myself sinking back into depression. We spent that night out on the mountain as well. It's odd, the way human minds work. Even when they set up camp in a wide open space, they'll end up sleeping under a tree or next to a rock wall. Without some sense of enclosure, it's hard for us to rest easy. It might be an instinct left over from the days when we lived in trees to protect ourselves from predators. Or maybe even a subconscious yearning for the confining protection of a womb. Come to think of it, my hiding places were always pretty cramped. The closet where I waited out on my father's drunken rampages was barely big enough for me to squeeze into. And the sense of confinement was oddly comforting. Maybe tiny spaces like that were something like a security blanket for me. At night, my dreams always followed a predictable pattern. I found myself in a vast, quiet mansion, its floors covered by a thick rug. Eventually, the sudden chiming of a clock on the wall broke the silence. Startled, I began to run. Someone was chasing me. I didn't know who it was, but I knew I had to flee. Panicked, I ran through the huge mansion at random. A great heavy door appeared before me. Pulling it open, I leapt into the gloomy room beyond. Inside, I found my way to a closet door, opened it, and hid myself there. Huddling there with my head in my hands, I waited in perfect stillness for my pursuer to pass me by, but as time passed, my eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I saw a box in front of me. When I turned my head, I found that there were many others just like it all around me. I knew it was inside those boxes even without opening their lids. The box right in front of me, about the size of a birthday cake, contained my father's severed head. If I opened it, I'd see it sitting inside, dark blood pouring thickly from the place where I'd broken his skull. The box next to that one probably had my mother's body inside it. The next box, and all the rest, contained the many other corpses I had created. And the people inside those boxes were looking at me, speaking to me. Why did you kill me? Why didn't you save me? Why are you still alive? Why does a ruthless killer like you get to survive? Part of me knew this was a dream, but it was still driving me insane anyway. I could scream for help all I wanted, no one was ever going to come and save me. The one person who protected me was gone now. As I cowered in the darkness, I could see her looking down at me, a sorrowful expression on her face. Kazuki. My voice could not reach her. Sorry, I'm yawning, guys. I apologize. And even if it did, there was no way for her to help me now. It was happening all over again. There was nothing I could do. Nothing.
Oh, Yuji. 大丈夫か? しっかりしろ.
Huh? What?
ああじゃねえよ。お前、またうなされてたぞ。だからああじゃねえっつの。ああ、汗でドロドロじゃねえか。
Taking a towel, Asuko began to wipe away the sticky layer of perspiration that had coated my body as I slept. I didn't understand her. Her past was obviously just as bad as mine, if not worse. So how could she be so strong? She'd killed people, just like me. Had she found some reason to keep on living anyway? Asuko told me that nothing was more valuable than experience. Did that mean if I experienced enough, I could be as strong as her one day? Was Kusakabe Asuko someone I could follow out of the darkness?
なんだ、人の顔じっと見やがって。
Asuko, on closer inspection, you're actually a pretty fine woman.
失礼なやつだな。私はよく見なくてもいい女だ。
Oh, I don't like to worry about all this now. Hadn't I already decided to trust this woman?
ほら、チューしてやるから、もう一度寝ろ。
I'm not a complete baby, you know.
じゃあ、大人のキスだ。うん。
When I was younger, Kazuki was always the one to give me a goodnight kiss to keep the nightmares away, as she told me. I wasn't really happy about being treated like a baby, but looking back on it after the fact, maybe she was the reason I could sleep so peacefully back then. Damn trains, I tell you. I was starting to think women were actually pretty amazing.
Yuji,
What?
いや、なんか今、お前の別の才能に気がついたというか。
Here we go. This is where Yuji sleeps with everyone again.
うるせえな。そんな目で私を見るなよ。なんでもない。もう寝ろよ。ほら。
Okay. I don't know if Asuka's magic charm did much in particular, but I didn't have any more bad dreams that night. Kusakabe Asuka. It definitely became very special to me. There was no doubt about that. But if her life was ever in danger, if I had to pull the trigger to save her, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. I'd probably just stand there and let her die. That fear was weighing me more heavily on me with every passing day. Before long, it would be realized in a very different form. A few days had passed since the end of our failed hunting trip. That morning, as I was cleaning off in the bathroom after my daily run, I noticed a strange clattering sound coming from the main room of the cabin. She's back already? Asuka had been called out on a sudden job a few days earlier. She'd be coming back in the afternoon, so it was too early for her to be home. If it wasn't her, could it be John? John's the dog. I stopped the shower and I listened closely. From the main room, I could hear my dog barking and growling up a storm. What's she so worked up about? Oh my god. I could barely see it. There was something oddly desperate about the sound John was making. I hurried out of the bathroom to see what was going on, and found that something strange was inside our cabin. For a few seconds, I couldn't even figure out what I was looking at. A massive jet black lump of fur was poking its head into the kitchen trash can. And John, holding herself low to the ground, was baring her fangs and barking fiercely at it. A bear. Whoa, look at that thing. Whoa! Just as my mind finally caught up with the situation, the bear seemed to notice my presence. Lifting its head up out of the trash can, it snuffled loudly. Standing upright, the animal would probably have been more than 2 meters tall. As it moved, I could see that its enormous body was practically a mass of muscle. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't even move. If I take a step backwards now, I think it's going to charge right at me. Backing away would encourage it to approach. Running would provoke it to attack. It's the nature of a wild predator. I had to keep my eyes fixed on the bear. Probably hadn't seen anything like me before. That should make it somewhat cautious. That said, I couldn't just stand here staring at it forever. Once it sized me up and decided to try taking a step forward, my powerlessness would be instantly exposed. What do? As I stood there, my body burning with tension, John let out another fierce bark from across the room. Reacting to the sound, the bear glanced away from me for a moment, turning his eyes down to my dog. Now! I broke into a run immediately, but the bear didn't even react. Its attention had turned to John, still braced low against the ground in her deep growls of anger. Damn it! Bursting into my bedroom, I pulled my rifle case from out under my bed, began turning the dials to form the number 9029. Damn it. My fingers were trembling with fear. I knew what I needed to do, but I couldn't get the numbers to line up properly. Even as I sat there, the bear might be eating John. Oh my god. But the thought only made me impatient, and I fumbled clumsily with the metal dials. Instead of moving a dial from 8 to 9, I found myself turning it down, rotating all the way through 1 and back again. The stupidity of it left me burning with irritation. What am I, a moron? Finally managed to unlock the case. I hastily grabbed a handful of ammo directly from the packs inside, not bothering with my scope or magazine. Bullets slipping through my fingers, I rushed back to the kitchen, where I left my rifle earlier. Don't move! Taking the weapon to my arms, I pulled back the bolt handle and pushed around directly into its exposed chamber, then pressed the stock against my shoulder and pointed the barrel at the bear. Stupid animal! Get the hell out of this cabin! shouting threats the creature couldn't possibly understand. I stood there with my finger on the trigger of my rifle, trembling like a leaf in the wind. The bear gave me a sideward glance and shifted its attention back to John with something like a sort of disdain. Bastards underestimating me. I had to shoot. I had to. If I didn't kill this bear right now, it was going to attack John. I knew perfectly well what I had to do, but my finger refused to cooperate. Whenever I tried to squeeze the trigger, a violent nausea welled up inside me. Perhaps sensing that I didn't have the guts to intervene, the bear charged toward my dog, still ignoring me completely. John! No. Not John. A single swipe of the bear's massive arm sent my dog flying to the wall. With a loud yelp, she fell to the floor and lay there in a twitching heap, unable to stand. The bear strode over, sunk its teeth deeply into John's upper back, and began to carry its fallen prey towards the cabin door. Wait! Screaming desperately, I pointed my rifle towards the ceiling and fired a shot to try and intimidate the animal. The bear didn't so much as flinch. I could only watch as it strode boldly out of the cabin, taking John with it. As soon as the bear vanished from view, I abruptly collapsed to the floor. It took a good 10 seconds for mine to even process what I'd just seen. It took her. It took John. The one thing relying on me for its survival. The life Osco had trusted me with and told me to protect. Taken away. Right before my eyes, and I hadn't done a damn thing about it. As I sat there stupefied, my eyes found a red stain spreading slowly across the cabin's wooden floor. It was John's blood. Reminded me of the pool of blood I'd seen on the day my parents died, I curled up into a ball, paralyzed by fear and guilt. It's happening all over again. I still can't do a thing. A wave of sheer, black despair nearly crushed me under its weight. But it wasn't over yet. There was still a chance that John was still alive. Might be able to make it in time. I got up right now, I might manage to save her. Gritting my teeth fiercely, I used my rifle as a cane and pushed myself up off the floor. My eyes flashed around the room, searching reflexively for anything that could serve as a weapon. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a large knife stuck in the cutting board in the kitchen. Grabbing an instant, I turned and bolted out of the cabin. Holding the knife in my mouth, I lifted the rifle's bolt handle and pulled it backwards, then loaded another bullet into the exposed chamber. Looking down, I found that spots of John's blood had formed a small trail into the forest. I have to get her back. That dog's mine. I have to protect her. She's my family. I'd get her back, no matter what, even if I had to kill that bear to do it. The instant this thought crossed my mind, I felt a strange heat in my back of my nose, and a vague sense of rage rose up inside me. It was the same thing I felt on the day I murdered my father. Kill it. Kill it. Kill it. That thing is your enemy. It wants to take everything away from you. Kill it. Kill it. Kill it. The voice of Heath Oslo, the man who made me into a tool, was echoing inside my head.